All right, well, let's get started here. Again, I thank everybody for joining me. I know it's a busy part of the semester for right now. Um, and I know for a number of you that are involved in like high school band and stuff, this is like right in the prime of contest season. So I appreciate you spending your Sunday evening with me. This will probably last about an hour or so, or maybe a little bit less if I'll leave some time for some questions. So I'll jump right into it, I guess. You're all here because you have some kind of interest in auditioning for a college percussion program. I saw on the list you have some people that are teachers, some people who are students, some people who are parents. So hopefully there'll be a little bit for everybody here. And at the very least, with these types of things, it'll give you something to think about and something as you're interested in taking that next step, some at least some information to ponder as you contemplate what you're going to do next. So and this is obviously sort of targeted towards those looking to major in music or even minor in music. But however, if you're a non-major and you're auditioning for, say, some kind of scholarship or ensemble placement or being in the percussion studio or something, that's fine too. Certainly you can glean some things that I'm talking about and apply it towards that. I'm not really going to get into drumline auditions. That I'm going to do a separate clinic on that, perhaps in the early spring. And again, each school sort of handles that a little bit differently. And maybe during that event, I'll talk more about how we do it here and maybe how I've seen it done other places. All right, so I think any type of audition, right? And there's a lot of questions. There's always a lot of anxiety and questions about the audition process, or really any kind of audition or application for anything. But I like to think of it as really just a matter of time management, how you maximize your preparation. We think about the audition setting, we think a lot about a lot of things that are beyond our control, like the instruments we have to play on, or what if our nerves get the better of us during the audition, or all these different things. Those are only a few things, and the majority of it you really have complete control over. So making sure that you're maximizing your preparation by starting early. I saw again on the list of the people attending this event, some are juniors or even sophomores. I think you have plenty of time there. Even if you're a senior right now, there's still plenty of time to put yourself in a really good position as far as your college percussion audition goes. So the best thing to do is to start as early as you can. And it's October now, so I think that this is a really prime part of the semester where if you haven't already, start thinking about some of these things and start putting into action some of the things I'm going to talk about. First thing, obviously, is school selection. Where do you want to audition? Where do you want to apply? And there's a lot of things that go into that. That's a pretty big decision. If you're a student right now, that's a decision conversation to have with your parents. But I think some guiding things to think about might be, well, what do you want? What type of degree are you looking for? What is your goal after graduation? Are you looking to get right out into the workforce? In that case, you'd be looking at something like a music education degree, something that comes with a certification. I feel that most people graduating with that degree are able to find a job in that field pretty much upon graduation. I know, especially with our teacher shortage in the state of Mississippi, our job placement with that, and probably those of the other colleges in our state as well, is about 100%. Are you looking to go to graduate school? If so, what graduate school or what type of graduate school or graduate program are you looking at, and what other undergraduate programs have prepared students to go into those graduate programs? And now if you're a senior in high school or even younger than that, that's probably something you haven't even thought about, and that's fine. But I think those are all things at the very least, even if you're not sure right now, start thinking about that and um, start considering what those options might be, and you can talk those over with your parents or your teachers or something like that. What kind of environment are you looking for? Are you looking for a smaller school where there's going to be a lot more one-on-one attention? Are you looking for a large school where there's a lot of resources and maybe more opportunity? Or are you looking for sort of a hybrid of those? Are you looking for a large university, but maybe with a smaller music department? So you're getting all the resources and excitement and opportunities of a large university, but still the one-on-one attention of a smaller music department? Are you looking for an urban environment, which maybe has a lot of things going on artistically, but there's challenges maybe or complexities when it comes to the lifestyle or the cost of living in a city? Or are you looking at more of a college town environment, which is going to be a little more laid back in terms of what's going on, but the cost of living and the pace there might be a little more suitable? Are you looking to be close to home or far from home? And last but not least, looking at the cost. And that's something, again, that's a conversation, for you to have with your parents, and looking at a lot of those different factors there. That's probably an entirely different rabbit hole we could go down on a different session. But I think once you make your list of the colleges that you're interested in, next thing you want to do is find out as much as you can about them, because there are a lot of really great programs out there. I think great programs with great faculty, great success stories from their students. Every program, every college is going to have its own personality. And you can learn a lot about them, obviously, by going online and checking out their website, checking out their social media. But if you can schedule a campus visit, that's something I would really encourage, because that way you get to view the school almost as if you were a music major for that day. See if you can sit in on ensembles, sit in on a theory class. You can set all this up, usually through the Office of Admissions and Recruiting at the school. They'll take you on a tour of a dormitory. They'll take you to the dining hall. They'll show you the student union. You can walk around and really say, okay, if I was here at this school, would this be a good fit? Also, while you're on campus, if you can, try to take a lesson with the percussion teacher there. And I'll talk more about that later, but that's a really great opportunity to not only get to learn more about the program, but sort of audition the teacher as well too. I mean, we put a lot of talk into your audition, but also you sort of have to audition the faculty to see if that would be a good fit. Also, some things to look for would be different type of open house events that they might have, especially this time of year. Most music schools are going to have some kind of music open house event. We have one called the Music Discovery Day, which is November 7th. It's a Monday. That's a great opportunity where you can come and attend sessions with current students, different question and answer sessions, get to meet the faculty, get to go to sessions about financial aid and admissions and auditions and all of those things. Information for that is on our website, music.msstate.edu. I would imagine most every school is going to have some kind of similar event like that. So any way you can get on campus, I find the students that I work with who make the most informed decisions are the ones who have done the most research and also really sought out opportunities to talk to and interact with the current students as well as the faculty. Next thing you want to do is figure out when the application deadlines are. And again, this is another one that each school is going to handle a little bit differently. If it's a large competitive environment, they're going to have some firm application dates. If it's a smaller school or one with not as high of an enrollment, it may be a little more flexible. So each place is going to be different just based on administratively, I think, how that school works the best. So make sure that you really check that out. For example, I'm working with a couple of my students now getting ready to apply for graduate school. And I think for both of them, the schools that they're auditioning for, the application deadline is December 1st. So that's earlier perhaps than say a school where you can apply during the spring, or even I know some places based upon where their enrollment is, you can even apply during the summer. So, but again, each place is different. So right now, just do some due diligence and find out those deadlines. On top of that, find out when financial aid deadlines are. I know for us, the deadline for priority consideration for financial aid for freshmen is December, I want to say December 1st. I know it's at the beginning of December. You can always apply for financial aid, but to get priority consideration, there's a deadline for that. For transfers, I think for our school, it's either March or April. It's a little bit later. But again, all of that information would be up on a school's website. Figure out how you're going to register for the audition. At some places, you can just sign up for an audition before you've applied to the school. Some places you can register for the audition after you've applied. Some places you have to wait to register for an audition until after you've been academically accepted to the college. So again, go on the website. And if you have any questions, the answer is usually a simple email or phone call. Next, figure out what the audition requirements are. And I'll talk a little bit more about this as we get further into this talk, but each school is going to have slightly different requirements. However, for the undergraduate level, they're usually quite similar. All right. And then as you start preparing for your audition and preparing your music and setting up this timeline, try to get private lessons. Try to get somebody who can be a mentor to help you prepare not only your music, but also prepare for the experience of going to audition. If you have a percussion teacher at your school, that's great. Or if you have a band director who's also a percussionist, you can contact them. Or if there's nothing like that at your school, reach out to your local a college that's nearby, or maybe even a community college. Also reach out to people on Zoom or Skype. So any way you can find somebody to sort of be your coach, where you're going to be putting in the effort, of course, but they're going to make sure your effort is being directed in the best and most efficient ways possible. And then from there, try to work out a preparation deadline. Like, for example, if you figured out all the schools you wanted to apply to, say, by October 15th, then what you would want to do is perhaps have all of your music selected by November 1st. And then say the audition is going to be February the 15th, just hypothetically. You would want to have all of your music learned and playable by a month before. So that would be January 15th. So that gives you roughly 2.5 months to prepare your audition repertoire. So that way you have a full month of doing mock performances, making recordings, playing for your peers, getting ready for the event of the audition, as opposed to still using that time right up to the audition to learn the pieces of music you're going to be playing. Something else I strongly encourage, if you do one thing here, I would encourage this. Try to schedule a lesson or a couple of lessons with the instructors, the percussion instructor or instructors at the schools where you want to audition. I've had a number of students do this and it's worked out quite well for them. They'll contact me and they'll say, hey, I'm interested in auditioning at MSU. Could I take a lesson or a couple of lessons from you, say in November or December or even January? And that can be either to help them select the repertoire they're going to perform, or to give them some guidance on what I might be looking for in the audition. And what that does, one, I think it kind of sets their minds at ease a bit. Also, I'm able to learn a lot about that student. And even with, if my schedule is really busy, I still try to make time for that, because sort of secretively, or I guess not secretively, I see that as part of the audition process too, right? I get to learn how they prepare, how they listen to me, how they make the corrections I ask them to make. So if somebody comes and takes a lesson from me and I give them a list of things to work on, and then they come back a month later, how they address those things and how hard they've worked, that's a better assessment of how they're going to do as a student than, say, if they come in for a 10 or 15-minute audition in February or March. I meet them really quickly, I ask them a couple of perfunctory questions, and then they play, and then they go on their way after that. They may have had a really good audition, but it's on music that they've been playing for years and years and years. Or maybe they worked really hard and just, however which way the wind was blowing that day, they didn't have the best performance. If they take a couple of lessons with me, I can see through that more. And that really gives me a sense of how they're going to do in the long haul over the course of a 4 or 5 year commitment to a college music program. So if there's any way you can do that with the instructor at the college or colleges that you're applying to, and again, if distance is a factor, maybe doing it virtually. Again, as I said before, that's a great way for you to audition the teacher as well. You know, you might be really impressed with what their alumni are doing or what you see online, or maybe you've been to a concert, but you get in the room with that teacher and something doesn't click right. You know, that's something else, you know, to consider. As a teacher, I need to audition for you the same way you need to audition for me. All right, so next up, I'd like to go into how to select repertoire for your audition. And this is primarily dedicated towards students auditioning to be undergraduates doing their bachelor's degree. The graduate school audition thing is a little more involved. There's some different specificities in that. So for music majors or minors coming in as an undergraduate, usually most schools are going to require something on snare drum, something on mallet percussion, something on timpani. Sometimes they ask for something on drum set, but in most cases, unless you're going in as like a jazz studies major or something, it's going to be optional. In which case, if you can play drum set, or you can prepare something to demonstrate and it's not required, that can certainly serve as a strong positive in your audition. If you're a non-major and you're looking to audition for, say, a band scholarship or ensemble participation, or to play in percussion ensemble, those are usually a little bit more flexible and they're taken sort of on a case-by-case basis. If somebody wants to do an audition, say just for a band scholarship, or as I mentioned before, they want to participate in percussion ensemble, at least for us here, whatever they're comfortable playing on, on whatever instrument or instruments, we're certainly more than happy to involve them. So, but again, it's important to contact the program, or at least read up on the website what the details of that might be. I think I can speak for most, if not all, percussion teachers here. I guess that's kind of a dangerous thing, but based on my experiences and my conversations with my colleagues across the country, how you play is much more important than what you play. Picking something that you're comfortable playing and demonstrates wherever you are as a percussionist on that instrument is going to win the day much more effectively than trying to choose a piece that you think I want to hear. Because if you choose a piece that's maybe over your head, I'm still going to be able to figure out your level of playing the same way I would if you played something that was appropriate for wherever you are on that instrument. But however, picking something that's appropriate for your level, you're going to have a better experience. You're going to play better. So I think that certainly serves you in a much better way. Most instructors at the undergraduate level, at least speaking for myself and programs like mine, I don't really care so much that for what the sophistication of the piece is. So picking something that is within your wheelhouse and something you can play well goes much further than thinking you need to come in and play con variations or something like that. Right? In auditions, sometimes they ask for sight reading. Again, they'll specify on the website. Usually that strikes fear in the heart of percussionists, especially sight reading on keyboard percussion. I know with my students here, if I'm ever looking to make them nervous, I'll just say, hey, let's do some sight reading today. But however, like any other skill, it's a skill that you can work on. So say if you're required to sight read on keyboard percussion, finding easily digestible things, small things to do on a daily basis, can certainly work well. And with a good amount of preparation, you'll put yourself in a better place when it comes to if you have to do this during the audition. Some good resources for that: if you get your hands on an easy piano book, try reading the treble clef part. If you want to work on bass clef, obviously work on the left hand part. Getting a hymnal from your church and just reading the melodies. Or if you go to your band director and say, hey, can I check out your beginning band books, like a beginning flute book, a beginning trumpet book, beginning clarinet book. All of those work extremely well. And you don't have to do a lot of it each day. I tell my students working on sight reading is kind of like working on doing planks. You know, you don't have to do them for long, but if you do them every single day, you'll see really good results over the long term. All right. So next, getting into some suggestions of what to play. And this is a dangerous thing because, one, I don't really know the ability levels of everybody that I'm speaking to here. And also, we sort of live in the golden age of percussion composition right now. If you look in percussive notes and the reviews of all the new pieces being published each month, I mean, it's astounding, you know, more so than any other time in music history. You know, are we living in a time where there's just a bombardment of pieces written for every type of percussion instrument, which is exciting, but it can also be daunting because you don't know how to sift through that and find what the best choices are. Also, as a teacher, I have students bringing me pieces of music that I've never heard of, but I think they're great. But there's so many things out there, it's hard to really come up with a specified list. So what I tend to do for auditions, I tend to stay pretty conservative. I sort of stick with the old war horses that have always served me well. So I may seem kind of old-fashioned here, but the recommendations I make, I think certainly can serve the student well. For two mallets, I think masterpieces for marimba, Thomas Macmillan, that was around when I was in high school. I think it's from even way before that. I think all of our all region and all of our all state music always came from that. It's a two mallet book of transcriptions, like Baroque and early classical period. Some are on the easier side, some are a little more complex. But they're all really nice pieces that you can play expressively and really show off a lot of musicianship with. Again, that's masterpieces for marimba by Thomas Macmillan. Fundamental Studies for Mallets by Garwood Whaley. Again, that's another older book, maybe from the 70s or 80s, but those all work well. Fundamental Studies for Mallets by Mitchell Peters. The solos that are in the back of that work very well. He also published a companion book of solos. I believe that's Fundamental Solos for Mallets. So those work well for 2 mallets. For 4 mallets, I don't require 4 mallets for a student coming in as a freshman. I can't speak for all the schools. I don't know that a lot of them necessarily require 4 mallets, but if you can do it, I think it's a strong positive. Again, there's a huge wealth of solos from which to choose, and I don't want people to think that I'm excluding their favorite one. So I'll keep it pretty simple here. A book that I really like is the Julie Davila, I think it's called Impressions on Wood. I know our Allstate in the state, I think they've used solos from there. She has another book called Inspirations for Mallets that just came out, which I think is in the same line as that. There's also some vibraphone solos in that book as well. There's the Mark Ford Marimba Technique Through Music. Those are all like 1 or 2 pages. Some that start very simple and then go up more into the intermediate range. And I would say anything by Mitchell Peters. I'm a big fan of his things, and his works are older. They come from the 60s and 70s, but solos like Yellow After the Rain or Teardrops, Zen Wanderer, Sea Refractions. Again, there's people that like to say, oh, those are old fashioned, they're sort of beat, but every student who plays one of his solos gets better. So his works are certainly ones to consider. If you have ones that work well for you that I didn't mention, that's fine. Again, we could go down we can meet every single week for a semester here and just go through these pieces, and I'm sure I would learn as much as you would. Snare drum, sometimes they specify either a concert or a rudimental piece, or sometimes it's both. For our audition here, I don't specify. I just want to see you play what you feel most comfortable with. For the concert stuff, again, I'm going to go back to my favorite, Mitchell Peters. Advanced Snare Drum Studies works well. I just finished judging the All-State Band auditions for the state of Louisiana. They used one of the etudes from Advanced Snare Drum Studies, worked very well. Also, his Intermediate Snare Drum Studies is a great book. I have a lot of my first semester students playing that. Even if their technique is more advanced beyond that, I think the musicality that those pieces involve, especially when it comes to the types of writing you're going to play, like in wind ensemble or percussion ensemble, that book works extremely well. There's the Cerrone Portraits in Rhythm. That's another one. I'm sure the list can go on and on and on. For rudimental snare drum, I like the John Pratt 14 Modern Contest Solos. Another book I like, I've never taught out of it, but I've had a number of students when they audition play from it. The Edward Freitag Rudimental Cookbook. I'm a fan more of sort of the older fashioned style rudimental playing. I don't think you necessarily need to come in playing a bunch of hybrid rudiments, during a college music major percussion audition. I don't need to see a lot of the hybrid thing. So I think if you keep it pretty conservative in a piece that you can make music with, I think that can serve you well. On timpani, I like something from The Solo Timpanist by Vic Firth. Mitchell Peters, again, keep bringing up his name, but absolutely love all the stuff he wrote. He has fundamental solos for timpani. There's also Fundamental Method for Timpani, which is the method book that goes along with that. And there's a bunch of solos in the back of that. They all work extremely well. Not to self-publicize, I wrote a book, 33 Elementary Etudes for Timpani, published by Honey Rock. publications, those were actually written with auditioning in mind. For a number of years, I was really not impressed with the pieces for timpani that students would come in and play for their auditions, or they wouldn't really have a solo or anything, and they take an excerpt from something, and it wasn't really an etude or anything that could really show off the fundamental skills of the stroke and rolls and dampening and getting around the drums that I would like to see in an undergraduate audition. So I initially wrote these solos and just sent them out for free to all of the band directors on our email list in the state of Mississippi. And then eventually, over the years, it was published. But I think all of those work well. On drum set, again, if you're looking to demonstrate some styles, like if they want to see a rock, a Latin, and a swing or something like that, the Tommy Igoe Groove Essentials book works well. I've never taught out of that, but Ben Neal, who also teaches with me here, uses that book when teaching different drum set styles, and he's had a lot of success with that. If you're looking to do a play along, any of the books out of the Jamie Aebersold series work well. I like to use Maiden Voyage, which is kind of their first sort of entry-level transcription book. The one after that is called Jazz Drummers Masters of Time, which gets a little more involved. It's a little more technical. I think both of those are authored by Steve Davis. So those are published by Jamie Aebersold. Okay, so next up, going into setting yourself up for success, right? As I mentioned before, there's a lot of things we get hung up on as far as our nerves and whatnot, but there are more things that we can control, right? And just as I talked about controlling our preparation, getting ready for the audition, selecting music, taking lessons, doing mock performances, a lot of these things you can absolutely put under your own control and ease your mind a bit on. And the same thing goes for how you set yourself up for the day of the audition. So I like to tell students to think of it as a job interview. You know, you're going and you're applying for something, you want to put your best foot forward. Obviously, the main part of it is your playing, but there are an awful lot of other things too, where you can set yourself apart as being somebody who's serious, who's motivated, who's hardworking, and is really eager to learn. So first things first, make sure you arrive early. If your audition is at a certain time, I would say try to get onto campus like an hour and a half before. That way you can find parking, because parking on college campuses is notoriously difficult. So if you arrive at the wrong building, you have a chance to find the right building. If you park in the wrong space, you can move your car and park in the correct space. So making sure you arrive early, also that way you have time to warm up, you can get on some of the instruments, you can sign in, you can, you're not having to deal with the extra pressure of running around and trying to do things really quickly. Make sure you dress appropriately as well. So I would say a professional dress, or at the very least a business casual dress, depending upon what you're comfortable playing in. I know as percussionists, it's hard for us to move around if we have long sleeves on, or certainly if we have a coat on. So a polo shirt and dress pants and dress shoes certainly work well. If you are going to wear a long sleeve shirt or a tie, make sure you practice wearing those things. So that way, when you show up to play and you all of a sudden realize the butt of your stick is getting caught in your shirt cuff, that's not a good thing. So make sure you've practiced that as well. For the ladies, I'm sure you can use your own good judgment as to what to wear. You would know better than me. Make sure to bring copies of your music. I would say bring 3 copies. That way, if there's 3 people on the panel, which is usually standard. It's usually the percussion teacher and the band director, maybe the orchestra director, maybe a teaching assistant, but it's safe to bring 3 copies of your music. So the week before, make some copies. If you can put it into a folder or take it to a copy place and get it spiral bound, type up your resume. I know at some schools they require that, so a nice and neatly typed 1 or 2 page resume works well. Again, you can talk to your guidance counselor or your teacher as far as getting advice for that. So that way, as you're playing and the people on the committee are sort of leafing through it, they can read about all the stuff you've done. If you've been in honor bands, if you've been in All-State, if you've done summer festivals, if you've made certain scores in solo and ensemble, if you're involved in other service things like scouts or your church or anything like that, those are all things that, while they're not necessarily having to do with your playing on that day, they can certainly show your experience as a leader or as somebody who's had to manage their time and work hard at things. Make sure you bring all of your sticks and mallets. I think we all come from different schools and different backgrounds. As a percussionist, it's important for you to have a set of timpani mallets, a set of marimba mallets, and a set of concert snare drum sticks that not only that you brought to the audition with you, but you're used to practicing with on a daily basis. So make sure that you have a chance to order your own set, or if you don't, if that's not possible right now, borrow them from your band hall or borrow them from a friend. However, over time, especially as you get ready to enter school as a freshman, you want to have your own sticks and mallets. Know the order that you want to play things in too. And this might seem like kind of a minor thing, but again, you want to control everything you can control. In most cases, we're going to ask you what you want to start with. So it's important. So that's one less thing you have to think about. When you're in the audition room and the nerves might be going, you want one less calculation up here that you're going to have to do. Also, you can practice your audition in the order that you want to do it in. So that way you get used to that progression. Say you start on snare drum and then you go to mallets and then you go to timpani. Or say maybe you have a better experience if you start on timpani first and go in a different order. You can experiment with that and practice that the same way you're practicing the notes that you're going to play. It's one more thing in the audition process that you can take control over and use it to put your mind at ease. Also, you want to practice what you're going to do in the warm-up room. So say you're in the warm-up room for 15 minutes or 20 minutes before you play. You obviously won't have time to play through everything, and you probably don't want to, because you don't want to say, if you do a great run through, you go, oh man, that was great. I bet I'm gonna mess some things up the next time. Or say if you don't have a great run through in the warm-up, you're going to feel bad about that. Instead, what I would do is have a warm-up to do on each instrument that's maybe only a couple of minutes long each. And then from there, have certain sections of each solo that you want to run through at a slower tempo. And the reason I say slower tempo is because the instrument that you play the audition on is going to be different than the instrument that you've practiced on, even if it's the same model. Say, for example, your band hall has a Musser 250, and you find out the school you're auditioning at has a Musser 250 as well. Well, the response of the bars is going to be different. Maybe the staining on the bars visually is going to look different. maybe there's some other thing, that's going to be different about that instrument compared to what you've played on. So taking some time to play through a couple spots slowly and just get a feel for, okay, my reach on the timpani here is going to be a little bit wider, or maybe my interval in the marimba is going to be a little bit smaller. Okay, the response at the edge of the snare drum is more live than the drum that I've practiced on. All of those things you can take a mental inventory of, and it can be one less thing that's going to throw you when you actually go to play the audition. And then, of course, once the audition's over, the next day, send a follow-up email and thank the audition committee, or thank the percussion teacher for their time, and ask if there's anything else you can provide, if they need any further information. And I think, again, that's just one more thing that sets you aside. You played well, you prepared well, you brought copies of your music, it showed your diligence there. And oh, by the way, you're also a thoughtful, courteous person. If you're going to be working with a student for 4 or 5 years in the percussion studio, it's not just going to be how accurately they played the marimba during their audition. That's going to inform, whether or not I want to work with them over an extended period of time. So I think being courteous and being thoughtful, no matter the situation, is always a great move. Okay. Lastly, what I want to do, and then we can open it up for some questions if you have any. Not only do you want to prepare for the audition, you want to prepare for what life is going to be like as a music major. Music's a very interesting major in that it's one of the few that you go in and you start taking your major coursework on the very first day of your first semester. In a lot of majors, you spend maybe your first 2 years just doing core classes, or maybe there's like an introductory or a survey class in your field. But in music, right from 8 o'clock a.m. on the first day of class, you're in music theory, you're in ear training, you're in piano class, you're in ensembles, you're in lessons, you're in recital hour. So you really hit the ground running really, really quickly. So it's important to have as much knowledge and as much background on a lot of different things as possible. And oftentimes our experiences in high school, even though we might come from some great programs with great teachers, it's really hard for you to be prepared on all of these things coming right out of a high school music program. Some places have that. Some places have theory. They have AP theory. They have ear training. They have piano. They have things like that, and of which I'm certainly envious, or at least the 17-year-old me would be envious of. But for a lot of people, we have some really good experiences, but there are some cracks that we need to fill in before we get ready for that first day of classes as a university music student. The most important thing I think you should do is take lessons. I talk to my wife a lot. She's a middle school and high school music teacher, band director here in Starkville. And the students who can take lessons, that's really something that can help you not only prepare to play the instruments, play all of the instruments at a high level, but also it gets you into the routine of taking lessons and how you practice each day and how you organize your time. And that gives you an opportunity also to learn the instrument, not just the audition music. So my first thing is take lessons. My second thing is learn the instrument, not just the audition music. And I kind of fit into this category coming out of high school. I didn't really play any mallet percussion, certainly any timpani, all through high school. It was just snare drum. And then going into my senior year of high school, I decided I wanted to major in music. So I had to get lessons to learn this thing called mallets and learn this thing called reading pitches. And so, and like a lot of students who auditioned for me, I was just kind of like flying by the seat of my pants, just trying to learn a solo, learn an etude on timpani, just something I could knock out just to get through the audition process. But it's an entirely different thing if you take lessons, and the earlier the better. But again, if you're a senior now, I think you still have an opportunity to do this. And even once the auditions are over, by all means, continue doing this. But if you're a fresh, say you're a freshman, sophomore, or junior now, you have a great opportunity to not even think about the solo you're going to play for your college audition, but instead learn your scales, learn how to read, learn technique, learn shorter pieces, get your ear training going so you can tune the timpani, get your concert snare drum technique going so you've got a really good sounding buzz roll and you can read at a higher level. All of those things very, very important. So again, take lessons. I know that can be kind of a financial burden. If that's expensive, see about taking lessons once every 2 weeks or once every month, or see if you can get a friend or two together and approach a teacher about doing a group lesson. Just anything so you're learning the instruments, you're getting used to that mentorship, apprentice type teaching environment where you're going to see a teacher each week and they give you an assignment, and then you go off the following week and practice, and you come back and they tell you what to do next or how to improve. And so you're working on the process, not just the end result of having a product you can take into an audition setting. Next up, learn piano. And that doesn't mean that you need to be a virtuoso concert pianist, but a little bit of experience on piano goes a long way, because you're going to play a lot of piano your first semester as a music major. You're going to play piano in ear training and sight singing, in your piano class. There's going to be different projects you're going to need where having a working knowledge, a basic understanding of right hand, left hand, melody and accompaniment, treble clef, bass clef, can go really, really far. Again, you don't have to be a virtuoso, you don't have to learn long, complex solos, but some basic piano, going through some beginner piano method books is something I would highly recommend. Also, if you can get some experience singing, I know for a lot of us as percussionists, the prospect of having to sing out loud and use our voices is especially intimidating, but you're going to have to do that as part of your ear training and sight singing. I had zero experience on that going into my first semester as an undergraduate, and I was able to get through it, but it was through a lot of hard work. And I probably spent just as many hours, or probably more hours at the piano than I did behind percussion instruments my first semester, maybe even my first year there. And that's work that if I had done that or known to do that in high school, I think I would have been much better off. I think the ear training and pitch matching and intervals and pitch recognition part of that is something you have to develop in your brain, and it takes time. And just because you're having a hard time with it and it's taking a long time doesn't mean you can't do it. It's like if you've never played a 5-stroke roll before, you can read an article on how to play one, you can watch people play one, but until you get the sticks and go into a room by yourself and do it over and over, and it's not going well, but you keep doing it, you keep trying, eventually it gets better. The same thing's true with singing. So if you can sing in a choir, sing in your church choir, sing in your school choir, if you can take lessons on singing, really anything to develop that pitch part of your brain is something that probably a lot of my students would give as advice as well, because it is possible to get better at it. And I've seen students through hard work improve on that. But I know if they had known to do that ahead of time, especially with the amount of time that some of you have to get ready for this, their time certainly would have been a lot easier. Also, if you can get some experience with music theory, as I mentioned before, at some high schools, they're offering this, some even offering it as an AP credit. That's great. If you don't have that, that's fine. There are a lot of really great resources online, one of which is musictheory.net. They have written theory, like your scales and your clefs and your chords, as well as different ear training exercises where you identify intervals, you identify chords. Again, you don't have to be a master at it, but a semester or a summer of doing that before going into school, that's going to make it so you don't have to panic and play catch up on a bunch of things. In fact, you'll be ahead of the game in some senses, so you'll be able to dedicate your attention and your time to other things as well too. Push yourself to do well academically. One, you obviously want your grades to be as good as they can be for college application purposes, but also coming in as a music major, you're going to have to juggle a bunch of things. And going back to what I said at the beginning of this talk, really it's all a question of time management and how you organize and execute your schedule. So I think you have a great opportunity in whatever environment you're in now. If you're at a community college looking to transfer, or you're in high school, and get used to pushing yourself academically. One, as I said, it's only going to help you with acceptance and scholarship considerations going into a university environment. But also, if you can get a time management and a disciplined regimen going as to how you do this and how you self motivate, not how your parents motivate you, not how your teachers motivate you, but internally how you self motivate and how you organize your time, that's going to help you a lot. Because when you come in, you're not necessarily going to have the same structure as you had in high school or maybe even at the community college. You're going to have an awful lot more freedom, and you're also going to have a lot of other demands placed on you. You're going to have your core classes like your Englishes and your algebras. You're going to have your music academic courses, your theories and your music histories. You're going to have your applied stuff, which means your percussion lessons, percussion ensemble, and you're going to have your ensembles. You're going to be in wind ensemble, you're going to be in marching band, you're going to be in the orchestra. So if you can get used to managing a lot of simultaneous things, keeping all the plates spinning, so to speak, the earlier you can start doing that, I think the more enjoyable and the more fruitful your experience at the university is going to be. And lastly, listen to music. As a music major, I think first and foremost, you have to be passionate and curious about music. And we live in an age right now where you have access to more music than any other time in history. You can just go online, go on to Spotify, go on to Apple Music, go on to YouTube, and you don't even have to know anything about the music or about the composer, but just find a piece of music and listen to it. If you're looking for ideas, you can ask your teacher, ask your band director, ask your choir director, ask me. If you've never experienced classical music, I think a composer we all know is Beethoven. Great, go into YouTube and type in Beethoven and then just click on anything. If you've never experienced jazz before, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, those are two good names right there. Type in their names and anything that pops up. if you're into chamber music or anything else. Again, that's a whole rabbit hole we could go down separately. And I don't want to do it and have somebody say, well, you didn't mention this person, you didn't mention this style. Any style of music, set some time aside each day, and you can even make a listening journal. And it's important to listen to this not as background as you're studying or as you're driving or as you're working or something, but really put on the headphones and make a practice. If it's only maybe for 5 or 10 minutes a day, get curious about it, and because music is a great thing to spend your life doing. And the depths that you can go to, as I mentioned, the rabbit holes you can go down exploring different things are endless, especially in this day and age now, where you can click on something and then on the sidebar, there's related composers or related pieces. There's no reason to not come in as a music major and have a short list of composers whose pieces you've listened to, of jazz artists, of world music. And if you're not sure where to start, ask your teacher, ask your band director, or as I've said, you can send me an email or something, and I'll send you a whole list of things to check out. And that way, all of these things that seem disconnected and separate, like the music theory, the history, the ear training, the percussion lessons, the ensemble, your other classes, if you listen to music and gain an appreciation for the music and the culture where it came from, all of these things begin to connect. And then as you're having to study and practice and things are getting crazy at school, you have a reason for why you're doing this. You have a passion that all of this is feeding into. And I think that's what it comes down to. If you can set yourself up for success and cultivate a passion, and all that preparation feeds into that passion, you get to have a life where you're doing something every day that you love. And that's something, the older I get, the more and more I realize that my life is perhaps unique from other people in that. And seeing my students go out into the world, their lives are going to be unique like that. Not only do you do something you love, but you now have an opportunity and a career sharing it with other people. And I think that's a really awesome thing, perhaps even a sacred thing. So I think if you're interested in this life, in this field, it can be kind of crazy sometimes, but you're in for one heck of an adventure. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions for me? You can put it in the chat, or you can raise a hand or something like that.